Hi guys, I heard a quote recently that I really liked. If you could do something yesterday, you can do it today. And if you can do it today, you can do it tomorrow. Today I'm going to run through 4 movement patterns that I want to be able to keep for the next 30 years. Obviously I do other things in my training, but these movements keep me strong, they keep me balanced, they keep me mobile, and they're things that I really want to carry through to later life. When choosing these 4 movements, I wanted to throw in a push, a pull, a core movement, and a good leg movement. And I specifically chose them not only to help strength, but also to test functional mobility and balance. So this is where it can really help me in later life. I often use these 4 movements as a whole workout, so I'll just rotate between all 4. And when I'm doing that, I never let myself get to complete failure. So I always leave a few reps in the tank, and that allows me to keep moving. I'll only make the workout about 20 minutes, and that really feels enough. And by the end of it, I feel like my whole body's been tested. Let's get into the movements. First up, we have the pull-up. Being able to do a pull-up is a good sign of power to weight ratio. Not too weak, not too heavy. I like to go wide grip, but actually I like to vary it. So sometimes I'll do an alternate grip, which just brings a different reaction through the shoulders. And then obviously the reverse grip, which is a bit more bicep dominant. If you can't do a pull-up though, there are lots of regressions you can do. Some people use a band where they put their foot into one of those big elastic bands. I don't really like that because what a band does is it makes it easiest when in a real pull-up it's at its hardest. So if you imagine your foot's in a band and you're down at the bottom position of a pull-up, the band is making it easy to pull when actually that's the hardest point. So what I prefer instead is to use either a chin over hold, where you hold for as long as possible with your chin over the bar, or use jumping pull-ups where you use your feet to jump over and then lower yourself as slowly as you can. And then if that's too tricky, you can do a row instead. So this mobile pull-up bar is quite handy because you can lay it flat. And what you can do once it's lowered is do a bent over row and, not a bent over row, a decline row. And in the gym, you could use a TRX or a gymnastic rings. The more of an angle up, so the higher your chest relative to your feet, the easier it is. The lower your chest relative to your feet, the harder it is. And these are nice progressions that can gradually build your pulling strength to work your way to a pull-up. Next up, we have the gymnastic press-ups. I like to use parallettes, but you could just use a couple of blocks or chairs or something at home, yoga blocks. The reason I like having these here is that it creates a deficit. So when you're going down into the press-up, your elbows are coming way back behind you. So what this does is it creates a really functional flexibility through the shoulders. This shoulder extension is often a neglected part of our shoulder mobility. As we grow older, it will really help us be able to do simple things in life, like put our arm into a sleeve and reach for things behind us, catch things like wriggling grandchildren. It also helps us in things like running, where we need to be explosive in this arm movement. And like I say, this is often a neglected part of our shoulder mobility. So I like to use the parallettes. At the top of the movement, squeeze my back up to the sky. This is helping to create nice shoulder and scapular stability. Elbows engaged and elbows neat and tied, narrow towards my body, dropping as low as I can, feeling that stretch, and then exploding up at the top. So that's the gymnastic press up. If, however, that feels too difficult, of course, you can go onto your knees and do kneeling press-ups. And then if that's too difficult still, you can kneel with your hands higher. So you can use the stairs or even a wall to work against, so that you're changing the angle of your body, making it easier, and then gradually over time progress that away, making it harder and harder, working your way towards the full press-up. Next up is my favorite leg movement, and that's the shrimp squat. The goal of it is to try and touch your knee to the floor behind you. I'm actually doing a regression of the shrimp squat. The progressions that make it harder to hold on to one foot and try and touch the floor behind you there. I don't quite have the strength to come back up. You can see it's really testing my hip mobility and my ankle mobility. My knee is having to go way over my toes here to try, and I'm having to stabilize that mobility. So it's a good test of functional strength, functional mobility, and a lot of balance as well as you're on one leg. So it's a lovely movement to carry forward into later life. If all of that seems way too tricky though, all you need to do is use a yoga block or block of any kind, and just touch your knee to a block, and it can be really quite high to start with, and then gradually just make it lower and lower until eventually you can do them without any block at all and go through the progressions like I am from there. And lastly, we have my favorite core exercise, which is some sort of tuck or L-sit. So I really like using the parallettes for this, or I use the pull-up bar and hang from the pull-up bar. The reason I like using parallettes or a pull-up bar to push from from or hang from is that while you're activating your abs, you're also really having to engage this whole shoulder complex and your leg muscles to do the tuck. So in the parallettes, start with just tiptoes on the floor and just engage your core and squeeze your shoulders down and your ears away from your shoulders. So you're engaging your scapulae muscles. Here you can just lift one foot at a time. So we're just doing little pointy toes and lifting one foot off the floor, just engaging one side of the abs. From here, if you can hold both feet off the floor and then gradually work your way to an L-sit, which is where you push the legs away from you. So as I say, even though this is my favorite core exercise, it's really engaging so many parts of the body, and it's helping to bring neurological connection from the shoulders through the torso and the spine and the core and the hips, and really using balance and all over strength all at once. So give that a go. Okay guys, so there's the only 4 strength movements you'll ever need. As you can see, it helps you push, you pull, your core, your leg strength, and they're movements that I'd really like to be able to carry through into later life. So I really do hope I'm doing them for the next 30 years at least. If you'd like to see other ways I train at home using my minimalist gym setup, click the video up here, and until next time, have a healthy week.